Hi everyone, I'm Miss Eden, and today we're going to make some vegetable gratin, or cauliflower cheese, to you and me. The very first thing that we need to do is to ready ourselves for practical or mise en place. So we should have cleaned and sanitised our surfaces, washed our hands and removed our jewellery, put our hair into a bun or putting it up, wearing an apron, obviously I'm in my chef's whites today, and collecting our ingredients and our equipment. So we can do that now, and I'm going to have the ingredients on the screen for you. You are going to need 1 cauliflower, 25 grams each of butter or margarine and plain flour, 250 millilitres of milk of your choice. I have coconut today. You will need some mustard. Now preferentially you want whole mustard or Dijon mustard because it has a real punchy, beautiful flavour. If you don't have any of that and you just have to have some generic easy mustard, then you can use that in place, that's absolutely fine. You're going to need 200 grams of cheese, mine's dairy free, and you need about 50 grams of breadcrumbs or 2 slices of bread. A quick note on your bread. You need to make sure that you're actually using stale bread where it's dried out after a couple of days. If you don't have stale bread and you've just got fresh bread, you can pop it in the toaster on a very low heat so it doesn't take any colour, it just dries it out. Because if you don't have dry or stale bread, it will not really blitz in the food processor very well enough, and it doesn't have that crispiness as well. So that's what we should be using. Wanted to take the opportunity just to go through knives very briefly. The ones that I tend to use as a proficient cook at home are ones like this, which is a chef's knife or known as a cook's knife. Big guy like this one, which is a santuku knife. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I love this guy, I use them all the time. We have other ones as well, like a bread knife, serrated. Also a serrated knife for things like tomatoes, and even things like fish knives or paring knives, like these very small ones. But the ones that you need to worry about are vegetable knives, or also known as utility knives, because they're general use, they're used for lots of different things. So I actually have 2, you see they're very similar. I have one which is slightly longer and one which is slightly broader in the blade, so hopefully you have something like this at home because that's what you're going to be using next. So hopefully you have your vegetable knife or utility knife ready. This is my one. Now to prepare the cauliflower, we're going to cut it into small florets. Floret as in fleur, fleur or flower, in a variety of languages. So we're going to do basically little flowers, little trees, little tree shapes. So to do so, we want to remove some of the greenery around here first of all, or we can cut the stalk off if it's very long like mine. There we go. And try and trim off the worst of the green. Okay. Now a lot of people will prepare cauliflower, broccoli by cutting into it through the head of the vegetable. But that makes an awful mess, particularly with broccoli, because those little green bits go absolutely everywhere. So the way I prefer to do it, which I'm going to recommend to you now, is to actually cut it from the bottom up. So in this case, I can just be very carefully using the claw, keeping my fingers clear. I can cut the little florets off here, the nice obvious ones like so. If it's quite big, I can come back to it later. Like this. Okay, the stalk is perfectly edible. If you want to prepare the stalk, you can just pop it down on the surface and you can cut the worst of the branches off because they're not especially appetising, like so. And I like to do this with broccoli in particular because there's lots of fibre in the stalk, and it's actually my favourite part of broccoli is the stalk. Cut it into small rounds, there we go, because it's more food. Now if you've got larger florets, there we go, like this one, the best thing to do is using the bridge technique where I'm holding it either side. I'm going to actually cut into the stalk, and I'm going to put my thumbs down in between and pull it apart, like so. Haven't got any mess, very clean, nice and easy, like so. And do that for all of them. There we go. So there are all my little florets. I'm trying to get nice even sized pieces. If you have any which are too small, they're going to cook very quickly and they're going to get mushy. If you have any which are very large, they're going to cook less quickly and they're going to be on the crunchy side. So try and get all the pieces about the same size, and now we can pop it in our water. We need a saucepan of water ready to receive our cauliflower. You can either go to the sink and fill it up with some cold water, and if we were in school that is what we would do, or if you are at home you could boil a kettle and fill it that way. And that's ready to receive the cauliflower. Okay, my cauliflower florets are all prepared and I can turn this on. There we go. Now obviously every hob's going to be different. Mine's electric, it goes up to a 9. I want to start it on a boil. So I want it on a 7 or an 8. You want a high temperature. Going to pop the florets in. If you start nice and low, make sure you don't drop them from a height because they will splash and you're more likely to burn yourself, particularly if you're using water straight from the kettle. So nice and low, and then just moving your fingers out of the way. There we go. Okay, yeah, we want to bring it to the boil and we're going to cook them for 5 minutes. So we'll come back when they're done. Next, we are going to grate our cheese. Now, hopefully you have a box grater or a very similar one, and we see that it has different variations on the sides. We need the one which is a large grate, like this one here. Not a slice, this is an intermediate one, and this is obviously a zest, so large grate. Obviously, please make sure that you're putting your hand over the top, you're not holding the sides of it. You can hold it sideways, you can hold it away from you, it's completely personal preference. Take your cheese and use nice long strokes, like that, up and down. So as I get towards the end of my piece of cheese, rather than keeping it go like so, if I turn it round, now I can keep my fingers clear. And as we get very close to the end, you'll actually find it much easier to keep your fingers flat. When people grate themselves, catch their fingers is when they're actually holding it sideways, like so, because they catch their fingers. So if you actually hold your fingers flat, it keeps them out of the way. Just slow it down a little bit, and you'll actually feel as it starts to get close to the grater, like so. There we go, that will do. And now I'm going to do my other piece. When you're done grating your cheese, obviously just take it out very carefully. There we go, that is a lot of cheese. Use your fingers to, on the inside, to take it all out, just minding it on the front. Pop it in a container or a bowl, or maybe leave it on a chopping board, and we will come back to that later. Okay, while my cauliflower is cooking, I'm going to start my sauce. So we want to take our butter, pop that in. Okay, so my butter has melted. I've got myself a wooden spoon or a wooden spatula, something obviously to not affect the Teflon on the bottom of my non-stick pan. And now I'm going to add my flour. Now we've learned already about gelatinization. That's the process of the starch turning into a gel in the presence of heat. So I'm going to stir my flour around in the margarine or butter, and I'm going to cook it. You need to make sure that you have cooked it for around a minute or so. It's longer than you think. If you don't cook it sufficiently, your sauce will not thicken. It will end up being very, very runny. So make sure that you've cooked it. And you can see I'm just keeping it moving to prevent it from burning at the bottom of the pan. Okay, I've been cooking that, and now I'm going to add my liquid a little at a time. You really mustn't add too much at once, because it needs to absorb the liquid in each instance, and it needs to continue to cook as well. So my sauce has thickened, as you can see. That's a beautiful roux sauce. And now I'm going to add about 2/3 of my cheese. I'm going to keep a little bit for the topping. There we go. I've taken it off the heat because it doesn't need a lot more. And just the heat of the sauce alone will melt the cheese. So just fold it in. I need to drain my cauliflower. So I'm going to remove my washing up bowl. I'm going to pop my sieve in the washing up bowl or colander, and I'm going to drain my florets into it like so, keeping my hands completely clear. Give it a little shake just to get all the water out of the ridges. And I can put that now in my oven-proof dish and pop that to one side. And now that my cheese has mixed in with my sauce, I'm just going to pour it over my cauliflower. Make sure you scrape the sides, get all off. Remember, more food, less washing up. That sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? There we go, and I'm just going to fold it all together. To prepare our breadcrumbs to sprinkle over the top of our gratin, which gives a lovely crispy finish, a lovely golden colour, we should ideally be using a food processor. So this is my one. It's a mini chopper. It's great, I use it all the time. And it has 4 main parts. So it has the motor, it has the container, the blade and the lid. We need to take the container, pop it on, and they're usually a bit fiddly. You have to find the spot where it will latch down and click it until it goes home, like so. The blade needs to go in all the way down, like that. I'm going to add my bread, which I've chopped into small enough pieces to fit it in my processor. And then I'm going to put the lid on, and again you have to make sure it fits and it goes all the way until it clicks home, like so. And then we can turn it on. There we go. So that looks like a fine breadcrumb. Fantastic. If you have any large pieces, you can just remove those. To finish our vegetable gratin, we're going to top it with our crumbs and our cheese. Doesn't really matter on the order particularly. You could do a little bit of each, you could sort of interlace them. There you go. So the cheese will give it that beautiful, rich, silky texture and flavour, and often gets a little bit of colour, gets sort of golden in the oven. And the breadcrumbs will give you that really appealing, appetising crunch. And again, get a little bit of colour. So that's now ready to be popped into the oven. You want to put it at fairly high, about 200, 210, for around 15 minutes. So I hope that your gratin was as successful as mine. I'm really looking forward to having mine as a side tonight. I'm going to have some corn fillets with a little bit of fajita seasoning and some sweet potato. So it makes a great side dish, and I hope you enjoyed making that with me. See you next time.